As I was preparing for this, I talked to a couple SEALs to do some background research, and one of them was retired Navy SEAL Dan O'Shea. And specifically, Dan whispered in my ears some things about Task Force Pineapple and some of the humanitarian efforts that you've been a part of. And I was hoping you might be able to share the story behind Pineapple and what your role was in it and what this amazing group of individuals was able to do to get so many people out of Afghanistan.
Dan's a good guy. Much love, Dano. Yes, obviously, we all saw the fall of Afghanistan and really unfortunate. I think this was a colossal failure at the highest levels of government. I don't care what position you held. If you try and tell me we did the right thing, I don't really agree with it. Over 20 years of warfare, trying to make a difference in that country, hundreds of thousands of Afghans who were willing to fight alongside us, who lost family members, who their freedom and security to try and support us, all on the premise that we were going to turn over a free Afghanistan, or at least a better Afghanistan when we left. And that was not the case. We turned the country back over to the same clowns, dangerous terrorist clowns who we fought in the first place, who started the whole thing. So when that occurred, it was very troubling. I did not have any personal relationship with the interpreters that we worked with in Afghanistan, but a lot of my friends did. I only did one tour in Afghanistan, but I had a lot of friends who had done tours. And all of a sudden, when Afghanistan collapsed, there were so many interpreters who were reaching out for help because they said the Taliban has put a bounty on all of us. They're threatening to come and kill us and kill our families, and they were doing it. And I'm friends with Scott Mann. Scott Mann is a retired Special Forces Green Beret colonel. I had an individual reach out to me, a friend of mine, and said, hey, Afghanistan's collapsing. I have a friend that's an interpreter. They're stuck in Afghanistan. Do you know anyone can help? And I knew Scott had started doing that. I reached out to him and he said, Jay, yes, but I could use your help. We're drowning. We're getting so many calls. He said, we're just kind of leveraging the networks of everybody we know in the special operations, DOD, intelligence community. So I said, hey, man, absolutely. So I got involved. I became what's called a shepherd. And those were us who had some level of special operations background or new individuals where we would try and move people through connections. I was never on the ground in Afghanistan. There was a report out there that said I was, and that's not true. Everything we did from the States, long hour. And I think one time I worked 48 hours straight trying to help a family get out with two small children. So we made a difference. We got hundreds of people out. The family I was trying to get out was actually right at the Karzai gate when the bomb was detonated. Although God works in mysterious ways, because what had happened is we were trying to get them through the gate that night, and there was a stampede, and there was a sewage canal right next to the Karzai gate, and there were thousands of people trying to get through. And he was carrying his 6-month-old daughter and I think a 2 or 3-year-old son, and they got trampled in the sewage canal. And his daughter ingested sewage water. They picked her up and they ended up pulling back to take care of her. Well, that action saved their lives because it was only a couple hours later that the bomb was detonated that killed all those people and our Marines. They were stuck there for couple of years, and then finally I heard they managed to get out through some of the other networks. That's how I was involved in it. I wish we could have done more. I'm very saddened. I know that there's a lot of dead Afghans who dedicated their lives to support our country, and I feel like our government just turned our backs on them and said, hey, sorry, you're out of luck.
Thanks for sharing that. And it was an incredible group of people. I remember being involved with Dan, and he was going 72 hours at a time without even sleeping because he was trying to get people out. And he invited me to this group event that actually had the reporter Lara Logan at it. And that's when I met Scott Mann. I didn't realize until she started speaking just how influential the Afghanis were to also news reporters who were there and how much they also spent a role protecting them. So she was just as vocal and trying to get people out as the people who serve there were.
And I want to give a shout out. There were a lot of Task Force Pineapple got a lot of spotlight, but there were a lot of groups. They kind of got this umbrella got created called Task Force Pineapple or the Pineapple Express, when the reality is there was probably at least a dozen groups that were doing this. Um, um, so I know Tim Kennedy, former Green Beret and MMA fighter. Tim was heavily involved. Tim actually went to Afghanistan. Chad Robichaux was in Afghanistan. Man, if you want to read an absolutely mind-blowing book, read the book Saving Aziz by Chad Robichaux. It is about him going, risking his life to get his interpreter out, who he had spent so much time with. He had become like a brother to him. So really some amazing stories. My part in it was a tiny little blip on the radar compared to some of the other people that are out there and what they were doing. So shout out to Scott Mann and his leadership, Tim Kennedy and Chad Robichaux and Dano.
Okay.
Dano was heavily involved too.